People starting to filter in. Welcome, welcome. All right. Once the attendee list sort of stabilizes, we'll do some announcement-y type of things. But all right, so we started the webinar a couple minutes early just to get people settled in. Wow, and the attendee list keeps on climbing. We've had a lot of interest in peer review. This is pretty awesome. So I'm glad we're building things that people are interested in. So yeah, hang tight. We'll get started in a minute or two. After we get everybody in, we'll go over some logistics and such. And if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. You're also welcome just to chime in the chat with a, hey, how you doing? Your call. We had to switch this to webinar format because there were enough people interested that a standard Zoom session was not going to cut it. So awesome. So welcome in. Give it maybe another minute, and then we'll kick off with some logistic stuff that's not terrible if people miss it, and then we'll dive into peer review. Interesting. Like I recognize a lot of the names, but only about half, which means that my message on peer review went out to people other than I normally talk to, which is fantastic. People that are interested in peer review, we are eager to hear your feedback. All right, we're higher than I expected already to attend, so maybe I'll get started into logistics. Man, David, if we hit 100% of registered attendees actually showed up, that would be like
This will become our default webinar list.
Yeah, we're just going to only do peer review webinars from here on out. I know you wanted an AI webinar, but we're going to talk about peer review instead. All right, so introductions for those that don't know us. My name's Marcus. I'm one of the owners of Harmonize, CEO, founder, yada, yada. I run the teams that do all of the cool work. And so let me introduce some folks to you here. David does a lot of our webinar and outreach. He sets up the webinar. He does trainings. He does sales support. He does a little bit of everything. He knows the product really well. He's going to be helping me man the chat. I have Alex with us, who is our instructional designer. She builds all of our help docs. She built the content for this webinar training. She builds all of our Harmonize trainings in general. She was going to build it and I was going to give it, but she did such an amazing job on the dry run that I was like, I can't match that. I'm just going to back on out and let Alex run the show. So she'll be running the training today. And then I have Eric, who's the king of support, runs all of our support mechanisms. He's probably going to be on mute. He said he had some things he wanted to deal with from a support perspective, but he's here to hear some of the questions that come out of this as well. And he's the head of all things when you reach out to our support email address. All right, so a little bit of framing as we roll into this and logistics. We have the webinar chat open. There's about 45 people in this webinar, so we didn't want to come on voice and do things. If you really have a pressing question that you would wish to speak instead, just let us know in the chat. And I'll promote you at a certain point when we can pull someone in. Otherwise, put your question in the chat, just typed. And then Eric and David and I are going to be kind of monitoring the chat in different times and figuring out when to interrupt Alex to kind of answer those questions and pull them in. So you can put those in the chat. We are recording this, so David will send out the recording after the fact. We also have some help guides that cover all and or more of this material, although your questions today will help us flesh out those things because this is a new system offering from Harmonize, and so we think we've covered everything we need to cover, but we're going to find out and figure out what it looks like. Gosh, any other logistics I'm missing? Otherwise, I will roll into some framing of all of this. I'm seeing a bunch of like, no, not so much. Okay, so what we're after here. So we launched peer review. It went live last week for people to be able to use. We talked to a ton of people about what makes a viable peer review product. Like, what do you want? What problems are you trying to solve? And we've taken our first pass at that. And this is what we call the early access period, where we think, and we're, I would say, 95% confident, I'll put that out there, that this is a really good workable tool. You all are going to be the ones that jump in and then tell us if that's true or not, what kind of features you'd like to see or not. What are we doing that's good? What are we doing that's bad? All of those types of things. We've run through this many times with some of the key collaborators from peer review for us. So, like I said, we're pretty confident that it's a good offering. Um, there are some things we definitely know need to be added. We will cover those towards the end of the webinar. So you can be like, we know that XYZ has to come. It's coming in a few weeks, or it's coming in a month or two, or whatever it is. So we can map that out so you can also see where our heads are currently at in terms of what things you need to do successful peer review. But really, this is all about you're the first cohort of folks that are going in and playing with it live, hands-on, and giving us a feel for things we may have missed. Our whole company ethos is we're going to build stuff. We're going to give it to the people who actually do the work, which is all y'all. You're going to tell us what else you need, and then we will turn around and prioritize that and build that stuff based on your feedback. I have most everyone's email address because you registered for this. I will be reaching out, like, I don't know when, haven't quite figured out when. Sometime after these training webinars, I'll drop a note and just be like, hey, did you have any feedback for us? But please don't wait for that. If you find something in the moment that you're like, oh, that was confusing, didn't care for that, or that was great, loved it, just drop us an email. You can give all of those out to our support email address, be it questions about how it works or why we did something or feedback, etc. And I'm going to put that out in the chat for everyone now in case you don't have it. So that's kind of the lead in. Alex is not only an instructional designer, she is also a former English teacher who ran peer review processes in higher ed. So she has bled upon that problem, if you will. And she is going to walk us through, the student view, the instructor view, grading things, etc. And please, please, please ask questions because we don't know. We don't know if we've covered everything or not. So if there's anything ambiguous or anything confusing, please bring it up because we've done the dry run of these trainings for each other. But that doesn't really hack it if you're not compared to a whole group of people listening in who are not part of the product development. Alex, anything else you needed me to cover before I turn it over to you?
I think that's it. You want me to take it away?
Take it away. I will stay on video so that you can see me when I chime in with questions, but I'm going to go on mute and I'll be watching the chat. So everybody get your questions in there.
All right. Thanks, Marcus. Like Marcus said, my name's Alex. I'm the instructional designer here. And like he said, I was an English teacher and ran many peer review sessions. And I was also an ID in higher ed and supported instructors who were running peer review. So with all of that in mind, I'm very excited that I get to talk to you today about this peer review tool and all the cool stuff we put in it and what we're hoping it's going to do for you and for your instructors if you're more in a support or administrative role. We're really excited. And for your students, we wanted to do cool things for your students too. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk a little bit first just about like the things we're excited about, what we think is cool, what we focused on. And then I'm going to show you what this will look like from a student perspective. I'm going to start with like a demo of like what happens when a student goes in. And then we'll look at it live in a learning management system, see what like a mock-up peer review might look like and how commenting would work for a student. We're going to show you what it looks like from a teacher's perspective, looking at assignments and reviews and grading, all that good stuff. And then finally, at the end, we'll get down to the nitty gritty nuts and bolts of like, how do I put one of these in my course? How do I configure settings? So that's kind of the agenda. And then we should have a good chunk of time at the end for questions and for talking about that roadmap future kind of stuff that Marcus was pointing to. So all right, without further ado, stuff we're excited about. So there are three big things we were really thinking about as we were building this. And the first one was easier setup and grading for instructors. This one is near and dear to my heart because I wrangled with the setup and grading of peer review for so long. And we really tried to make this something that was going to be a massive improvement. Peer review, like to step back, peer review is one of those things that I think is so good for students. Like it's so good for their learning in the moment to be looking at other students' work and then being able to like critique their own work and all, like it's just wonderful. And in terms of like life, like it's a life skill, right? To take feedback and give feedback. And so it's so important, but it's so logistically complex that I don't think we do it enough. And so easier setup and grading helps with that. We are offering auto grading that's going to be basically grading based on process completion, Did the student post their assignment? Did the student do their peer reviews? Did they do those things on time? Because a lot of the time, that's all we really want to grade on in peer review. And then we want to save our time to get in and, browse through the drafts, spot who's really struggling, or like, identify who didn't turn a draft, or like who's missing their peer reviews, or who gave peer reviews that were maybe off the mark, that kind of thing. That stuff, like getting freed up to do a little bit more of that stuff rather than like checking boxes for everyone. Sort of on that same note, like one of the time sucks can be just like assigning peers to each other and getting people grouped up. So we're offering automated assigning of peers. You tell it how many reviews you want the students to do, and we'll get the students paired up for that. And it's even like I've worked with systems before where there was like a set time where all the students would get assigned to each other, and that was kind of cool. But then if someone came in late, it created a huge problem. So our peer review is going to be like just in time assigning. So even if someone comes in a little late, they'll probably still be able to get matched up with someone else. Obviously, if they come in like severely late, it gets a little less likely. But we're hoping to help with those students who maybe get in a little late so they're not totally shut out. But you also don't have to deal with like managing that process. And so in that respect, it's also a little bit resilient to late work, which we know can be a big problem with peer review. And then finally, on the easier setup and grading topic, we want to offer a better grading interface. So in the grading interface, you're going to see everything you want to see. You're going to see, okay, here's the student's assignment. Here are the reviews they gave. I can grade them on those, but it'll also be easy to dive in and see different views and more detail if you want to. Okay, so that's the big thing. Instructors, better setup, easier grading. We also want to make things easier for students, though, because peer review can honestly be confusing for students. So to that end, we're offering, our typical milestones, which are our version of due dates, so that students can clearly see, okay, here's where my assignment is due, and here's where my peer reviews are due. And at each phase, we're also going to show them the correct instructions for that. So they're going to know, here's when my assignment is due, and these are the instructions for that. Here's when my peer reviews are due. Here are the instructions for that. So it should be a lot easier for students to do, which in turn, I think makes things easier for instructors because they're not getting so many comments and questions from students about just things like due dates and instructions and stuff. And then our last thing here is that we want to open up peer review to every discipline. So a lot of the peer review stuff is really focused on English and the humanities. I love that as an English person, but we really want everyone to be able to peer review. And so we offer our multimedia tools for assignment submission, and we're offering critique tools that work on practically anything your students submit. So if you're supporting or teaching a speech class and you want students to submit speeches, or if it's an art class and you want them to submit images and art, we're going to offer critique tools for that. And it's not just that students can submit anything, they can submit any combinations of things. So you're not locked into like a single submission type. If you want someone to submit a screen recording of their presentation and then also upload their slides and also upload their script and also like write a reflection on their process, like they can submit all of that and it can all get peer reviewed. So that's what we're really excited about. I see stuff coming in the chat. Marcus, did you see any questions I needed to take?
Nothing for right now. There's something when you get to, well, no, nothing for right now. It's something I'll table for later.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, well, I'm going to forge ahead and show you guys what your students are going to see. And this is one of our arcade demos. This is going to do double duty for us because this is also the kind of thing your students will see if you give them one of our guides. So this is based on our student guide. The student guide would have automated talking and words on the screen. It would stand in for me. I'm going to do the talking, but this is the kind of thing your students might have access to help them with peer review. Okay, so in this example, we've got an essay assignment, pretty standard essay assignment, but we're going to use this to show how peer review works. So right at the top, we can see our milestone requirements. We know as students, okay, I'm supposed to post my assignment by Monday, June 23rd, 11:59. Right next to it, I can clearly see when my peer reviews are due, and I can clearly see how many are due. So right at the top, I know exactly what I'm doing and when and how much, all those good things. Scrolling down, I've got my assignment instructions. I also have a place where I can click to view the rubric for the assignment. So if you set up a rubric with Harmonize, your students can view it right here, and know what they need to do for the assignment. All right. And then coming back up, so I mentioned, students get to see exactly the instructions they should see at every phase. So right here, we've got the assignment post instructions showing up because this sample student has not started yet. So they see the instructions for the assignment, but if they want to, they can collapse those, which is this purple blinky dot is inviting us to do. So if I click that, it's going to collapse those. The peer review instructions are always here. So if students want to peek ahead, they can. By default, they're collapsed at this stage, but you can always open them, close them, whatever. They're the peer review guidelines. Okay. So once a student has seen all of
let me
the...
interrupt. There's a question that came in that was important there.
Yeah.
That rubric that she was showing. So when you think about peer review, conceptually, there are two rubrics associated with peer review. There's one for my initial assignment work, and then there's one for how do I do a good peer review. The one she just showed is for the initial assignment work, i.e. if I'm going to turn in my first draft, here are the 4 things I need to focus on. We will auto-generate those, or you can select an existing one. We'll do them doing AI like our standard rubric generator. The peer review rubric I'm going to talk about in the roadmap section because we conceptually see this as having 2 rubrics. The second one is not done yet, but we'll get to that soon.
Good question. Thank you. I bet other people had that question too. All right. So once we've reviewed as a student the instructions, we're ready to post our assignment. And for that, we start by putting in a title. I'm just in this sample, I'm going to put in, my draft or whatever. And then it's time to post our assignment. So you can do that in a few different ways. One way is to just upload a file. So if your students are maybe drafting an essay somewhere else, here's where they could attach that. But it works for other things too, slides, if they upload videos they recorded elsewhere, images, whatever. This is where they would click to drag and drop files or click to browse, whatever. This is where they can upload stuff. But there are other options too. So this is the text box, and you can invite your students to draft and put their text right into this text box if you want to. There are some extra goodies that come if they put things in the text box. If they put things in the text box, you can ask for a minimum word count, and we can run that through Turnitin. You can also go for a best of both worlds approach and say, hey, students, I want you to attach your document because I really care about your formatting and citation style or whatever. But then please also copy paste your text in the text box. And then you kind of get both. You can see the good formatting, but you can also get like a minimum word count, use Turnitin if your school has it. So lots of options there. And then down below, we have what I like to call the goodies row. I have no idea what this is really called. David or Eric might be able to hop in, but I call this the goodies row. It's got all the good things. So if you want your students to record something directly within Harmonize, they can, whether that's audio, video, they can record their screens, they can even do polls, whatever it is you want your students to create. A lot of these things they can create right within Harmonize. All right, so in this example, Teresa is going to upload a draft of an essay. You can visually see it here, confirm that you uploaded it. And then Teresa is coming down here and noticing that this particular assignment is configured for AI feedback. We also call this coaching. This is basically a chance for students to get like round 1 of feedback. It's guided self-assessment. It's totally optional. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to. But if you want to, you can turn this on and your students can see how they're doing against the rubric or how they're doing with the different rubric criteria that the instructor has set up. So I'll click on this, show you what this looks like. In this example, I as a student would be very happy. I've got little room for improvement on my top 3 grading criteria, but I might look down and notice, oh, academic writing and rhetorical effectiveness. I have some room for improvement there. Maybe I'm going to go in and make some changes. We don't give super specific suggestions. We're not trying to spoon feed students or do it for them, but this is a tool for self-assessment that maybe prompts them to reflect and think about where they can make some changes before they even get into peer review. So then peer review can take them that much further. All right, and then when we are ready with our post, we can click publish. Okay. And there is my draft showing up. You'll notice too, I probably should have mentioned this sooner, but all of this looks like classic Harmonize. So if your students are already doing discussions in Harmonize, one cool thing is that you can start using this peer review tool without having to teach them a totally different interface. Posting an assignment looks a lot like making a discussion post. And once they come here and have their assignment posted, this looks a lot like the classic grid view. And I think that's really cool because when I was supporting instructors, I did not want to put 10 different technology tools, 10 different ed tech tools in a class. Like that's too much for instructors, too much for students, overload. But when everything kind of has this same interface, it gets easier to incorporate more stuff without taxing everyone's tech knowledge too much. So, all right, there's my draft. And then
Alex,
right
pause.
next, oh, yes.
Couple things came in that I want to address. The coaching. As you mentioned, a lot of this is standard Harmonize stuff. That coaching feature that's based around the assignment rubric that's trying to get students to do revisions and such, only scans text and text-based attachments currently. So if your students submit something in video or they draw a pretty picture, AI is not quite there yet to be able to do that, to look at those videos and images well enough to be able to coach. So we do not coach on those. And we will tell the student that. So if one of your rubric criteria says, make a really gorgeous piece of art, we will coach them on the three things, whatever else the three things were that could be assessed in text, but the part of the rubric that asks for something that's not coachable, we'll tell the student that, and we won't try to coach on something like that. So there's a lot of resilience built into that I can get you some docs on, or we can talk about towards the end as well. It's only coaching what it is safe to coach on with AI as it stands today. And as AI gets better and instructors want it, we'll offer additional coaching. On the rubric front for the setup, a question came in about what happens if you want to use multiple rubrics. We build a rubric for you based on the assignment, and we show it to the students. Depending on your LMS, there's a bunch of different ways you can go for when you want to grade with the rubrics. For example, in Canvas, attach any rubric you want to the grading process. We can still show the student the initial assignment rubric inside of the peer review process. But if you have a rubric that is combining assignment and peer review ideas and you want to use that to be able to grade your students, you can do so. Canvas has the most flexibility in this front. The other LMSs, this is where we are going to talk about it more in the roadmap of how do we accommodate people who want to grade with custom different types of rubrics inside of a peer review process. So Stephen, if that answered your question, great. If not, throw something else in the chat. And if it doesn't, we may have a more nuanced conversation follow up after the fact.
But Marcus, and correct me if I'm wrong, they can always have the assignment rubric up for students to use, but then grade with something else. That's true for everyone, right? Grade not using a rubric.
It's complicated, so let's
talk
about that.
We'll talk about it later. We'll talk about it later. All right.
I am not going to let you drag me into this conversation mid.
We said later, we meant later. Later. Okay. Coming at the end. All right. So for now, diving back into peer review. Once Teresa has made her assignment post, she is ready to do her peer reviews. And if her peers have work done and ready for her, she's going to see something that says start peer review. And if she wants to, she can dive right in and go ahead and start. If no one else has posted anything yet, or if everyone posted and got paired up and it's now kind of a second wave of people coming in and doing stuff and it hasn't started yet, she will see this grayed out instead. It will say peer review 1 and it'll be grayed out, and she'll see a message that says there's no work to peer review at this moment. Please check back later. So she knows to come back later and do this. Did you want to jump in, Marcus?
I've been splitting my attention because the chat's been pretty busy. Did you cover the whole just-in-time assignment and how this works yet, or?
I kind of covered it in the overview, but this is probably a good place to linger over it a little bit longer and the way it works.
Let me, do you want to do it or you want me to?
No, go for it.
Okay, so I think this is pretty key to a smooth running peer review process, because peer review process is really damaged by late work or students missing work. And so the way we have bypassed all of that is that we don't actually do the assignments of who is reviewing who until you click this button. And so Teresa's here, she's getting ready to do a peer review. She's ready to start the work. When she says start peer review, we go figure out who should she be reviewing, who has the fewest reviews, whose work needs some review. We then assign that to Teresa at that moment. So we call it just-in-time review assignment. That way, if somebody submitted their work late and they have 0 reviews and everybody else has 1, that's the person we're going to pick. So that late person still gets a review, and we can try to catch them up, assuming they're not way late, type of thing. And the question came in about, what happens if students get dropped out of the class and everything, and all of that just works because we assign those students from the active pool. Let's say a student was in that pool, they got assigned, they did some work, it got reviewed, and then they get dropped from the class. We still have all that work. We're still going to show all that work to everyone. That person is just no longer part of the pool. So when the next person comes along and says start peer review, we're not going to give it to that unenrolled person. We're going to find the next person instead that needs to do this. And we'll get into some of the configuration of how you can control who reviews who somewhat later. But this is something to keep in mind, is that we are doing this on the fly at the moment peer review starts, so that we can really balance out for your class who is getting peer reviewed, who has a sufficient number of peer reviews as you go through. And so Amanda asked a question in the chat that if no one has done, and if there is no work to be reviewed, it's going to be grayed out. It's not going to let them continue, and it's going to put a large banner across the top that says "Yo chill," although we worded it better than "Yo chill," for them to be like, "There's no work. Please come back later." We go really deep into this. This may be a bit too much info, but we actually show you in the grading interface if the students should have had work to do and they came in and there was no work because their peers weren't done on time. That's not that student's fault. So we will actually show you that information in the grading interface. If they came in, they should have had work to do, but all of their peers were in fact late. Here's when they came in, here's when they checked, do with this as you will. Maybe they did not finish their work because we were not able to give them one because their peers were late. So that information is available in the grading interface.
Marcus, there was also a question there about notifications. So if a student exits, will they be notified by Harmonize that they are now up and ready for a peer review to be completed?
Oh, I wish I'd pulled Andrew into this session for the nuance of notifications. They start peer review, we assign someone to them. I think the nuance of the question, Geneva, is that if they then left or they didn't have anybody and someone became available, do we notify them that someone is available? That latter question is currently no, because by the time they come back in, there may once again be nobody available because we're doing just-in-time peer assignment. So if like I come back, I left and then someone's like, Bobby's work's ready for review, and we notified everyone, that first student is going to grab that slot, and then everybody else is going to come in and be like, oh no, there's no work available. So ideally, if they come in after since we have multiple due dates, if they come in after the assignment is due, we should have plenty of work to pass around. And if everyone deserves 2 reviews, we'll keep handing them out. So there should almost always be work to review for them to jump into, unless they're that really early go-getter who came in 30 minutes after the assignment's open. They're the first student done. That's the student that is going to have to wait. It's really only the first 1, 2, or 3 students that really have that problem. And those students are going to be so early that they have a lot of time to come back in and get started with the peer review process.
That's a great point, Marcus. And as long as they're coming in like after the actual like date when the assignment was due, like the first assignment post, there should be stuff there because students will have posted stuff.
Yeah,
So
there's some
like you said,
caveats.
it's really only if they come in like before it was even due that they're probably going to see this.
There's some caveats we'll get into when we get into the configuration of if you want to control more granularly than that, who assigns who, there will be some caveats to that of like, if you make your assignment pool small. We'll talk about that as we get into configuration.
Good point. These are good questions. I can tell you guys are paying
smart
attention.
People.
I love it.
Yes.
I love it. I could tell it's people who have done peer review or supported instructors who did peer review, because this is what I would be asking. Okay, I think we're ready actually to go look at what this will really look like in a real live LMS. So I'm gonna escape out of here. And I'm going to pop over. let me pop this out so it's not so obviously like in Canvas. And this is more like what everyone will see. So regardless of what learning management system you're using, this is what this is going to look like. I'm coming in as a test student named Laverne. Laverne is my favorite test student we have. I don't know why. I like Laverne. So I'm Laverne today. And I have completed a post I have completed an assignment post. I posted my assignment and I'm ready to do my second peer review. So I did one of my peer reviews. I've got one review complete and I still need to do one. If I scroll down here, I can see my work. So here's where I posted my assignment. I've got a couple of reviews. That's exciting. If I want to, I can click in and I can go look at my reviews. Oh, there's what I posted. I posted a lot of stuff for my assignment. You guys probably won't have your students submitting quite this much work, but we wanted to show you kind of the full range of stuff you can do and peer review in Harmonize. And then down below, I can see, ooh, Anonymous Dove reviewed my work. So this particular assignment was set up for anonymous reviewing. When Anonymous Dove was reviewing, she knew she was reviewing my work, or he knew, but I don't know who is reviewing me. And so that is nice for students. This is something you can control. You can turn it on or off, but by default, students won't be able to see who's reviewing their work. It maybe helps them be a little more honest and a little less afraid to give feedback. And I can see all of the feedback I got right here. Ooh, interesting image feedback. And if I want to, I can even reply to it. So this is something that I think is really cool because Harmonize is at its core a discussion platform. What we're going to do is take peer review, and it's no longer just a like, here's my assignment, here are my peer reviews. Students can get in and reply to the reviews they've been given and actually have a conversation and like talk to each other about how to make the work better, which is fantastic because these things should be a conversation and should be a supportive space rather than a like, here's my critique, I'm going to bounce. So if I want to, I can reply right here and say like, hey, could I ask you something? Whoop. And I can type. So that's just one of the cool features we have. Nicole asked, can it be fully anonymous, the creator and the reviewer? Yes. And the way you set this is a little bit different if you're in Canvas or another LMS, but yes, you can make it so they cannot see each other. Marcus, I saw you unmute. Do you want to jump in?
I was going to say, let's spend a little more time on that towards the end because
Okay.
it's an area where I think we need to do some additional work, but I'm interested in your feedback on. So let's cover that towards the end as well.
So short answer, yes. Long answer, no, with a but. And that is a
Yeah,
Simpsons
yes
joke
with
for
a but.
anyone who's familiar with the Simpsons.
Or yes with an and, yes with a but.
Yes,
Anyway.
with the but. Anyway. Okay, so that is how that works. I'm going to pop back out and show what the review looks like. So I'm done reviewing for Teresa. I did my review for Teresa, and I had started this peer review earlier. I'm going to go back in and I'm going to finish it. So instead of saying start peer review, it says continue peer review. So I'm going to click continue peer review. Can collapse my peer review instructions if I get sick of scrolling past them. Or again, I can open my assignment instructions if I want to remind myself what I was supposed to be doing for the assignment. All right, so I'm reviewing Sola's work. And Sola has submitted a whole bunch of things that I can review. Ooh, here I am. I'm anonymous. I'm Anonymous Gower. I probably didn't quite pronounce that correctly, but I did look it up right before this session to try. So I'm Anonymous Gower, and I'm going to leave some feedback for Sola. Oh, I actually apparently was working on this earlier and left some feedback for Sola. That's fun. I'm going to delete it out and pretend like I didn't leave this earlier. Okay, so when I first come in, this is what it looks like. I can attach a file. So like if you have a document you want students to fill out as they're reviewing each other's work, they could fill it out and attach it here. I can also type a comment, and there's a word count for this particular assignment of 200 words. So I'm going to have to type 200 words for Sola. That's the default for peer review, but you can get rid of it. You can make it higher. You can make it lower. We do like having a minimum word count for this because in our research, the thing that was most highly correlated with quality peer review was actually just length of comments, which sounds really reductive and silly, but it makes a lot of sense, right? Because comments, feedback needs to be specific and detailed to be good. And it takes time and space to make constructive suggestions for improvement. And you want to have a polite, professional tone. So that kind of, you got to like word things carefully. So here's where you can control word counts. It works just for that text box. Anything else to show here? All right, I think that's the main stuff to show down here. And then scrolling up, I can review all of this cool stuff Sola submitted and leave comments directly on it. So for either the essay or the slides, I can click on add notes or just click on the thing itself, and I'm going to be able to comment directly on that stuff. This is our annotation tool. If there's text and it's readable, I can highlight it, and then I can click add note. I can leave a note like, I don't think you need to say essay title or whatever it is I want to say. And click done. In addition to the highlighting tool, I can drop pins. This is great if something is just missing and you can't highlight it. Like I can click here and be like, where's the works cited? Question mark. The pin is also nice for images or multimedia submissions, or not multimedia. I guess I mean multimedia, text and image submissions. Or if you just have like a lot of overlapping highlights, the pinning can be useful. And once you've left all your notes, you can close out. You click the little X to close. It's going to tell you, okay, you got to review your notes. Okay, I'll review my notes. Takes me down. I can see my notes, confirm that they're what I want. If I want, I can go back in and edit them. And then I can come back up and review some more of Sola's work. Like I could draw on her image. This is great if you have your students posting, I don't know, like maybe you ask them to create flyers, or maybe it's an art class or a design class, or who knows. If they submitted something visual, you can critique it. You can draw right on it. You can be like, oh, here's this. What is this? This is a eyeball. So exciting. So you can critique drawings and actually draw on them. And Marcus is helpfully, Marcus is so much better at me at thinking of all the examples. So this could be cool for mind maps, engineering schematics, architecture diagrams, landscape classes, the sky's the limit, graphs, even just like graphs, or I don't know, all kinds of good stuff that you want your students to create and review.
None of these are my things, Alex. These are just things that I know instructors are doing with the drawing tools today. So I like to claim creativity, but it's not actually true. It's other people's creativity.
You're so super. And so good at giving the instructors credit for the awesome stuff they do. I love it. And then the last thing I'm going to show is video feedback. I'm going to show this with the screen recording, but you could also do this with the video. We offer time-stamped video feedback, essentially. So if I click on this respond within video button, I'm going to get my own copy. I might have to scroll down a little. I'm going to get my own copy of the video, and I'm going to mute it so you don't have to hear us talking. I can press play. Oh, look, I've got some nice machine captions. And when I'm ready, I can click respond. I can say, oh, great opening to your speech, or whatever it is I want to say. And if I want to leave more comments, I can click play. I can click to a different slide and click respond again and say, you know, I can draw on this too. I can drop pins on this too, all the good things, you know, great layout, whatever it is. I can leave all my comments right there. So again, what we really wanted to do was open up peer review so that you could do it in any sort of class and it would be helpful to you. It's not just for writing classes. Anyone can do peer review.
Yeah, the speech and communications, I think, is one of the key ones. Like if they're doing
Yes.
PowerPoint presentations using our built-in screen record, being able to pause and critique that, draw on their slides. If I had drawn on this slide, I would have been like, don't put paragraphs of text on your slides. I would have been more critical than Alex was, but she's nicer than that. Also, just a note, we are actually, a lot of you have asked for the little recorded head of whoever is presenting. That is coming. Engineers are working on it now.
We're getting the recorded head. I'm so excited.
Getting the recorded head. So sometime in the early fallish hand wave over exact detail, you're going to get the recorded head of the person speaking, which is also good from a communications perspective, because if they're staring like this when they're talking and you can critique that type of thing as well.
I love that. I think these tools and that feature will be great as well for people teaching second languages, as far as being able to see the students and hear them while they're talking and leave that timestamp feedback. Is there anything else we need to say here? I don't think so.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Let's go ahead and see what things will look like for the instructor.
Actually, any questions on student front before we go? Audio or video feedback? Yes,
Is there any specific information we should share about accessibility when it comes to the peer review tools?
Oh, thank you. I missed that one. Things are scrolling by quickly for me. Yeah, so accessibility wise, we do full auto caption for all your videos and all your PowerPoints. So anytime you do any sort of video feedback like Nicole was asking about, we are going to auto caption it. You can actually edit those as well. The annotation feature where we were drawing and dropping pins on stuff is screen reader navigable. That's a hard word for me to say for some reason. So you can actually get in there and do all of that with keyboards as well. The video feedback you give, and I'll have Alex demo this in a second, is not, you don't timestamp video comment and attach videos to each timestamp comment. Instead, you just record a video at the bottom and it will have captions as well. And we caption in whatever language the entire thing is set to. So if you're doing a Spanish speaking class, we will auto caption in Spanish. We do not detect that language yet. We're thinking about it, but so you have to set that at setup time to be able to configure that. And then if you want to go ahead and show the recording video thing as well.
Yeah, that's a great question. I used to ask my students to record videos for each other. I think that's a really great peer review practice. So you have the same goodies row that you have everywhere else in Harmonize, and you can come in and click record video. Oh, that's interesting. I had to allow my camera, but it worked. Okay. So I can click start recording and I can say, you know, hey, fellow student, I really liked your draft, whatever it is I want to say. And when I'm ready, I can pause and stop. I'll have 5 minutes by default, but you can adjust that. And yeah, like Marcus said, this video will get automatic captioning. There's also audio and screen recording. The screen recording could be useful if I wanted to like open up my peers' document, like their essay, and scroll through it and talk about it with that document actually up. So all kinds of good things. Okay, let's go look at what things are going to look like for the teacher. So I'm going to stop acting as user. I'm going to mostly show this in Canvas, but I'm going to make reference to the other learning management systems. There are really only a couple of little differences. It's mostly going to look the same everywhere. So here we've got our peer review assignment. And if I scroll down as the instructor, I can see everything that everyone has submitted. Again, it's that classic Harmonized view. All the assignment submissions are laid out as cards in a grid. I can see, oh, Laverne has 2 reviews. That's great. Oh, poor Sola, she doesn't have any reviews. Maybe I can go check on her and make sure she's gonna get some reviews, whatever. And you can see here the different kinds of things we'll put on the cards based on what students have submitted. And then we have this really cool activity view. If you are in a learning management system other than Canvas, this is going to say grades and activity, and this will also be where you're grading. But if you're in Canvas, it just says activity. If you click on this button, you're getting a really nice overview of what's going on. And you can tell, probably Marcus can tell, there are these moments where I'm like, oh, but to have had this when I was doing peer review for 75 students 3 times a semester. So like at a glance, I can see who's done. Sola, she's done. Yes, great. Laverne, she's not done. Oh, but I can see she submitted her assignment and she's given 1 review. She's on her way. If someone hadn't done anything, I would be able to see that here. And in fact, there's this cool like students with incomplete submissions. If I click that, it gets rid of Sola and anyone else who's totally done. And now I can just see who's missing stuff. And I can hone in on them and make sure that they get their missing work in. Ah, I love it. So great. And then if you're not in Canvas, you can click on one of these students to go in and start grading. Right. Some weird pop-up thing in the corner here. I can click on Laverne and go in and start grading. If you are in Canvas, you can grade right from the speed grader. I'm going to show that. One note for the Canvas users, just like in classic Harmonized discussions, nothing passes through to the speed grader until the student has completed all the work or until the milestones have passed. So Laverne doesn't have anything showing up yet. The only person who has stuff showing up right now is Sola, because the due date hasn't passed. She's the only one who's done. So if I come to Sola, I can see the details of how the grading worked and what was assigned. I saw someone, I think a little bit ago in the chat ask, like, is any part of the grading on the peer review? Like, yes. If you do the auto grading, it's basically going to grade on, did they complete their assignment? Did they post their assignment? Did they do their peer reviews? And you can portion out as many points as you want to for each of those things. You can also always change the auto grading. The rubric that you would see here, if you opened that to grade with, would, however, just be for the assignment. And then I can see Sola's submission right here. One of the things I love about this, it's what you see in the grading view is Sola's assignment and the review she did. And I love that that's what you see here, because that's what you need to grade. You need to grade her on, did she do her assignment and did she do her reviews? And that's what you see. But there's all sorts of other stuff you can access if you want to. So like if you're looking at Sola's assignment and you think, oh, I do want to see the feedback she got though. Is there a way to do that? Right above here, I can click on her title when she posted her assignment, School, the Ultimate Visibility Trap. I can click on that. Now I can see Sola's submission and any feedback she got. Poor Sola does not have any feedback yet, but this is where I would see it. And then similarly, if I'm scrolling down and I'm looking at the reviews Sola gave, okay, I can see that Sola was an anonymous moose and gave someone a review. Right above that, if I want to, I can see that this was Sola's review for Edith. And if I want to, I can even click on that and access Edith's post as well as any reviews she got. So there's Sola's review for Edith. Other good stuff that lives here. This is where you would see the Turnitin report. We posted the same thing for all these people, so they all look like plagiarizers. But if you've got Turnitin and you turned it on, here's where you would access that. If you turned on the AI feedback, the AI coaching, and if the student used it, you can click here to see the results they got and click through previous scans. Oh, looks like Sola improved. She used the coach and she improved. That's cool. Good to know. All right. Questions? Did something pop up?
Marcus, I want to say that Nicole's question was if there is two separate grade book entries for the one for the assignment and one for the peer review. She can clarify that or not, but I think that's what she was. Yeah, she said
in the
yes.
grade book. Okay. Yeah. So right now, the way it works is it's a single grade for everything the student has done for the assignment and the peer review for the peer review process as a whole. If you auto graded it, we automatically send that to the LMS gradebook for you. If you manually grade it, you grade it based on the entirety of that work. A lot of the feedback we got, the way this would work is that you would say, okay, students, we are going into the peer review process. Let's run that process as one grade. And then 2 weeks from now, we are actually going to have you take all of that feedback, create a new assignment with Harmonize if you'd like, use the same rubric if you like, and set up the now turn in your assignment for your final grade based on all the feedback you receive throughout the course. Then you would regrade just based on the revisions to their assignment, and it would be a separate assignment, a separate column in your grade book. And Alex, did I cover that coherently?
Yes, you did. You did. I would add to that I think what more typically happens, or at least did for me, was I would have my final assignment ready. So maybe I set up my assignment in Harmonize and I know it's due at the end of Unit 1. And then like a couple weeks before that, I'm like, oh, I got to set up peer review. So if you do it that way, what you do when you go in and set up peer review, you can select existing rubric and pull in that rubric from the final assignment. But yeah, Marcus, you're totally right that that's how you end up with two distinct grades for the peer review process, and including the draft. Like that one includes the did you submit your draft, but then like a separate grade for like the final assignment. And then is the workflow in Canvas the same to see students' work, the same for peer reviews as it is for discussion? Yeah, so there are different ways to see the student work, but if you want to, if you're like super comfortable with the classic discussion view, yes, you can view the students' work that way. And when you click on any of the students' submissions, you will see the submission with the comments on it, or you can look from SpeedGrader.
Let's dwell on this moment here for a second, because this was something that was asked quite a bit of us, is that how do you make peer review become a conversation? How is it not just a one and done? And so this gallery view, for those that are familiar with Harmonized discussions, looks just like Harmonized discussions, because we want the peer review process, if you choose, to be a kickoff to discussions. And so the instructor, I as the instructor, see everything that every student has done, how many reviews they have, what's new, what's not. I can jump in, I can reply to those reviews. The students have a smaller set where they can see the things they reviewed and reviews upon themselves, and they can continue on that conversation and keep going on. So ideally, if you want, the conversation continues, and we'll talk about some roadmap ideas we have to carry on as we get into the roadmap-y section of this as well.
Yep. I'm going to show setup real quick, and then hopefully we'll have some time at the end to circle back to some of these questions. So however you are in however you set up assignments for Harmonize, if you want to follow along, you can go ahead and do that. You basically add an assignment the same way you normally would in Harmonize, but instead of clicking discussion, you're going to click assignment. So I'm going to come to my peer review module I've set up here and click add. It says assignment. I'm going to click create assignment. I'm going to call this peer review 9 or whatever it is. I'm going to click add item. 9 would be a lot of peer reviews, but who knows how many peer reviews you want to do. I'm going to go ahead and edit my assignment. Regardless of what learning management system you're using, you're going to want to set the points on the learning management system side. I'm going to pick 100. And then you're going to want to set the final due date. I think this is true in every learning management system except Moodle. But in the other ones, you will set a due date. This should be for when the final reviews are due. So not when the draft is due, but when the comments are due, when the peer review is due. So I'm going to pick that. And then I'm ready to connect to Harmonize. The way we do that in Canvas is to come to submission type, change it to external tool, click find. And then whatever system you're in, you're going to have a bunch of stuff and you go to the H's and you find Harmonize. And then this part should be familiar to everyone. This is where you get to picking the content. In fall, you will pick peer review at this point, but right now you're going to pick assignment. Got a link here. I'm good. For Canvas, I don't recommend loading in a new tab. I recommend loading it in the same tab because it looks good that way. So I'm going to uncheck, say select, and I'm going to click save. So I went through that pretty quickly, but it's the same process for setting up any Harmonize component. Okay, in the fall, there's going to be a really nice wizard here, but for now we have this editor, and it's good to know how to use the editor too, because even when we have the nice wizard, if you come back into edit, this is the view you're going to see. If you have instructions for your assignment already, you can put them right here. We've got our goodies row, we can add files. If you don't have instructions, you can make some. I'm going to click generate prompt. I'm going to say, I want my students to analyze filmic elements in The Wild Robot. Great movie. See it if you get a chance.
Filmic elements? Is that a thing? Anyway,
yes.
Sorry, shouldn't have interrupted.
Yes, it is a
Sounded
thing.
all kinds of fancy. I've never heard filmic before, but all right.
Well, it's fancy and real. And if I come up here to this row, I want to draw attention to this. In a standard discussion, you usually just leave this alone and leave it at the apply level. But assignments can happen at all different complexity levels. So I'm going to click change and think a little bit about what complexity level I want. In this case, I'm having my students analyze some stuff. So I'm going to click analyze. We've got all kinds of cool new prompts at all these levels, all the way up to create new work. So try them out. I'm going to click update and generate instructions. And it's going to give me some instructions. Ooh, examine a specific visual scene. Oh, I love this. Describe how the selected visual. Sorry,
Alex,
go ahead.
I was staring at the chat. Did you cover that they don't have to use the AI stuff, that if they have their own assignment, good to go?
I mentioned that you could just like copy and paste in, but
okay, cool.
But yeah. Good point. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. Absolutely not. Totally optional. You can generate something different. If you don't like it, you can add feedback. And when you're ready, you can click review and edit this. Do review this carefully. The AI messes stuff up sometimes. All right. The next thing we're going to do is pop over to the assignment settings. This is where you can connect to turn it in if your school has it. This is where you can change the captioning language. Someone was asking about that. So if you're in a language class, this is where you could choose to caption in a different language, any videos recorded. This is also where you can change the time limits. So if you have your students recording longer presentations or just doing shorter things, this is where you can control how long they have for screen recording and for video and audio recording. And at this point, if you just wanted to do an assignment and not peer review, you could be done. You could go click publish. So Harmonize is a lot more friendly now to doing assignments. You could always kind of do it if it was kind of like a back-end thing, and now it's like a much more straightforward thing. But if you want to add peer review, we have a nice peer review tab up here. So if we click on the peer review tab, peer review right now is off. I'm going to turn it on. If you want to, you can be pretty much done at this point. We have a bunch of presets, and I'm going to go over what those are. If you like our presets, you can just be done and click publish. If you don't, you can go in and change them. We pre-populate with some peer review instructions. If you don't like them, you can change them. And then, of course, you can always add files or use our goodies. And then down here, by default, peer reviews are anonymous. People cannot see who is reviewing their work. That is what that means. But you can make it so students can see each other if you want. By default, any student can be assigned to any other student in the course. If you're, depending on your learning management system, you might have other options here. If you are in Canvas, you can make it so that students only review for students who are in their same section. If you are in Canvas or in Blackboard, you can make it so students are reviewing only other students in their group. And so if I want to put Marcus, Eric, and David in a peer review group together, I can. And then as long as they all submit their work on time, they're all going to get assigned to each other. So that's really helpful.
Let's dwell on that. I want to reiterate that a second, because I think this is going to be a common question we get. I want to assign users to each other. It's like, we'll put them in a group together. Put the 3 people you want to assign to each other in a group. We will then still do the just-in-time assignment so that if David's late, he's not screwing up the whole process. But in reality, David being late in a small enough group is still going to screw up the process. Sorry to pick on you, David. And let's say I was in the group and I was late and I really screw up the process. The smaller your group, the less resilient it is to late work. So 5 people, 6 people, probably pretty resilient to late work. 10, 20, 30, a section, a course, really resilient to late work. 3 people, not so resilient to late work. So the default is any student in the course across the board. So we'll have 30 students we can pick from. So when I come in, I'm going to get assigned someone to peer review. Chances are one of those 30 students has submitted work and it does not yet have 2 reviews. Therefore, I'm good to go. It's only when you get into those smaller groups, or let's say all 30 students were late, then you're going to start to have a little bit of struggles as well.
But I will say, I kind of like how this one works, that you can just say, I just want it to be Marcus, Eric, and David. Because in some learning management systems, it's so complicated to be like, Marcus, you have Eric, and David, you have Eric and Marcus, and Eric. So this is like it's easy, even if it's not totally resilient. I mean, there's no way to make a 3-person group resilient to late work. If one person doesn't turn it in on time, that group is going to have problems. So. All right. And then
real quick note, just for those other road mapping, because those Moodle and D2L people are probably out there being like,
yes.
I wanted groups as well.
Yes.
We want groups for you as well. We are actually shifting into manually doing groups for D2L, both for discussions and peer review and such, because we're and that will work for Moodle as well. So so stay tuned. Sometime hand wave in the fall. I'm not going to commit to an exact date. We are going to build grouping into Harmonize because we can no longer wait for Moodle and or D2L to implement grouping.
And will that be available in discussions as well?
Why, yes, Alex.
So exciting. I get asked all the time for this, so it's very exciting. Just wanted to highlight that. All right. Last thing on this tab is number of reviews. By default, it's 2, but you can dial it up or down. And then if you want to, you can publish, you can be done. But there is one last exciting tab you can explore if you would like. It is the milestone.
Is it really exciting? I don't know if it is really exciting, but
thrilling. If you'd like to, you can come to the milestone due dates and auto grading tab. By default, the auto grading is on because we assume most people just want to grade peer review on, did you do the things you were supposed to do? But if you want to, you can turn it off. This is where you can adjust the minimum word count for the peer reviews. And it's where you can adjust the minimum word count if you're asking your students to type stuff or copy and paste stuff into the text box. You can also adjust how many of the points are going to the assignment post or to the peer reviews. By default, they're split evenly, but you can adjust it here. And by default, we're going to ask students to submit their assignment post 4 days before the peer reviews, but you can change that here and make it, you can make it like a whole week, you can make it 2 days, you make it whatever you want to be, and then you're done and you click publish. And that is how you create a peer review assignment right now in Harmonize. So I'm going to throw it back to Marcus for what's coming next and questions.
Okay, so definitely get your questions in the chat. If you have a question that you're like, it's too complicated, I don't want to type all of that, throw out in the chat that you want to come on voice, and David can find you in the list of participants and promote you. I want to talk about things that we are definitely doing, and then I want to solicit some feedback on things that we think we need to do, but we're looking for feedback from you, as well as then when things that you didn't see here that you're like, wait, it doesn't do X, Y, Z. Um, and so I'm going to cover the short-term things. This setup process that Alex just showed you is our traditional. More than a year and a half ago, this is how you used to have to set up everything in Harmonize. You got to come into the tabs, you got to click through everything. About a year and a half ago, we moved to a wizard setup to where it's like, we're just going to walk you through and ask you questions about the defaults. And you choose 4 days before, 5 days before the due date, et cetera. That same wizard interface is coming in August for this. So if you go in today, you have to click through the tabs to change any of the defaults. You have to click through the tab to say peer review. Coming in August, you're going to pick peer review at the top level, and all of this is going to be set up for you. We're going to ask for your assignment instructions. We're going to confirm the defaults, and we're going to go. So it'll be less clicks for folks, but for you as early release, we thought you guys could deal with the tabs and a little extra clicking as well to be able to accomplish it. So that's coming. Let me look at my list. The next thing that we think is super important is that this is what's called a qualitative review. You are leaving feedback, you're critiquing documents, your timestamp commentaries. You are not actually using the rubric and filling out the rubric as if it were a form where you have to answer and give feedback on each rubric criteria. That is the very next thing we're working on. Handwave exact time frame. Early September-ish, mid-September-ish. Don't hold me to that, but sometime in that time frame, you can click a box that will say, I want my students to essentially use the rubric to give that feedback. In which case, instead of being faced with a blank text box with 200 words, they'll instead be faced with, here's the rubric. Pick excellent, pick poor, leave a comment for each rubric criteria. That's coming out in very early fall. As well. We wanted to get this into your hands so that you could try the qualitative rubric side. We will drift into the score it on a rubric immediately after. So if your peer review doesn't happen until slightly later in fall and you want to do the scoring, have students do the scoring with a rubric. I say scoring, but it's not actually scoring. It's filling out the rubric without a score attached. You can do so. And then and yeah, Nicole said, okay, it'd be useful even if they don't score. The thing we don't have planned yet is to actually have the students score each other with the rubric and somehow put that into the grade book. We've had a couple requests for that, but it hasn't risen to a yes, we should do that or no. So that rubric mechanism, I keep saying scoring and I should not. It is filling out the rubric to give feedback without a numeric score attached to it. They will be able to see excellent, and here's why I think it's excellent, and poor, here's why I think it's poor for each of the rubric criteria, but it is not going to contribute to their grade. That will still either be auto-graded by process or manually graded by the instructor. A couple questions. There was a conversation going on with an instructor. Sorry, I can't scroll back up and find the name. But when we were showing grading, we were showing it being graded with the assignment rubric. I've had so many conversations and there does not seem to be a clear answer to this effect, but some instructors grade based on the assignment. Some instructors don't, they just grade based on completion. Some instructors grade based on how well did you do the actual peer review. Some grade on a combination of all of those. So this is an area where I really want some feedback from people as you're going into it. In Canvas, you can attach any rubric you want. So you could build a rubric for grading, even if it's none that we provide, and do your grading. And in the other LMSs, you can do it. It's a little more complicated because you actually, I think, have to attach it in the gradebook and score that way. And that's different per LMS. It's the same rules that apply to the discussions in Harmonize today. But I'm really looking for feedback on like, okay, we're looking at going in, we have the assignment rubric. We're looking at creating a rubric for what does good peer review mean as well. And then the question is, we now have 2 rubrics, and like thumpkin battle. Which one do you grade with? I don't have a firm answer on this, and therefore would we ask you during setup which one do you want to grade with, or was there a combination of the 2, or what? So when you get in and you're actually like, here's how I grade peer reviews, send us a note to support at Harmonize Learning about how you grade your peer reviews. If you are manually grading them, I desperately need that feedback to figure out what is the correct thing to build there.
Marcus, we did have a question earlier. Wanted to know, is there a way to do a peer review for discussions? meaning it's not assignment based.
You can basically set this up. If you set this up the way she showed it, it is essentially a discussion. You could, but it's I guess maybe I would need to know more information about what the difference between peer reviewing and a discussion is, because all it is how do you define the initial submission? If the initial submission is discuss your thoughts on the module reading, and they turn that in, that kicks off the peer review process. So you can do whatever you want with the tools. The only reason we're saying start it as an assignment is that by default, it's not a class-wide discussion, and we are layering visibility controls and workflow controls on top of it. But it essentially is a peer review discussion if their initial thing they submit is, here's my thoughts on discussion. The big difference between the two is discussion allows the students to submit 1 card, 2 cards, 3 cards, 10 cards, 15 cards. Peer review allows 1 submission. And I think that's the big difference between the two.
And Marcus, we also had a question about the updates you've been talking about coming in the fall. If they set up peer review this summer and try it out, will those updates automatically update what they're creating now?
Let me think about this. The rubric scoring update, I think the right thing to do here, and I haven't discussed this with Andrew, is that we will not turn that on by default because you did not see that when you were setting it up. So if you configure your whole thing today and then we release rubric scoring in like September, whatever, you would have to come back into the settings and say, yes, require my students to fill out the rubric, which would toggle the mode. And so you can set it all up. You don't have to reset it up, but you would have to come back into the settings and be like, yes, please, rubric ratings have my students fill that out. So, if you're not going to do it till October, come in sometime in September after you get our release notes. Make sure you're signed up for our release notes so you know when these things come. David, can you go get the release notes URL? It's pinned to the releases channel in Slack, and it will let people sign up for them if they're not members of them. And if you can't find it, let me know and I can dig it up. But make sure you're on our release notes, and then you'll see that coming, and then you could go back in and just check. It's going to be a single checkbox of like, okay, now they are scoring with the rubric. The wizard setup only works the first pass through, so it's not something that you would need to worry about. And then the same thing for the other setup. Like if we get to that peer review rubric thing, you'd have to come in and take a look at the rubric and make sure it's what you want and it's part of your peer review. We never insert something into your pre-configured thing that's going to change the way it behaves.
Can I circle back to something from earlier? This
Yes.
partially goes to what Tamara White was saying with the I want to be able to grade the assignment on peer review. I did just double check. So if you're so we talked about how in Canvas you can attach whatever rubric you want, but even in the other learning management systems, like yes, the rubric here right now is going to be for the assignment, but you can always click override grade and just grade them, just give them a grade if you're grading them on the peer review and not trying to grade them on like these specific criteria. So you're not stuck grading it with the rubric, I guess is what I'm saying, just because you have one set up. I hope that makes sense, Marcus.
It does, yeah. And let me read some of the comments that have been coming in, see if there's questions embedded in them. Okay, a vote for asking. All right, cool. Right, and the peer review rubric, Tamara, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. It's important for clarity, for them to know exactly what they want. It's important for us if we want to turn on that AI coaching. This is another thing that I'm pretty sure we're going to build, but I'm looking for feedback. Alex showed AI coaching for the initial assignment submission. We can do the exact same thing for the peer review process. So instead of saying 200 words, we can actually look at it with AI and be like, were you complete? Were you polite? Did you cover all 4 rubric criteria? All of the things that we would normally put in a peer review rubric, we would put in a peer review rubric. And then if we could make it a mandatory step to say like, hey, student, you're getting ready to turn it in. We scan all of that and we're like, you were a jerk. Take a look. We're not going to say you were a jerk. What we're going to say is, there's much room for improvement on the tone and positivity rubric criteria for you to be able to do. And so that's where I think we're going next. I don't think that's going to be there in time for you to use this fall. We're going to try to build it sometime during the fall, but we have some other commitments as well that we've promised people. And so that's one of those where I'm like, if that sounds awesome, let us know, because I think we're going to build it. But we also are very driven by what everybody asks us to build. So if people ask us to build a bunch of other stuff, that's going to get pushed down the queue a little bit as well. And yes, Nicole, adults could use the feedback to be more polite as well. Maybe we just put a rubric coach on general life and try to have no longer emails be rude.
But this is exactly why peer review is so important. Those adults should have done more peer review assignments in school and they would be better at giving feedback.
Yeah, right. I mean, optimistically, you're correct. All right, questions for us. I don't know where we're at on time. Did we run over on time? Oh, we ran over. All right, so we are recording this. That's good for us to know for the next session. We will send this recording out. I can't stress this enough. Any and everything you have to tell us, support at harmonizelearning.com. I will probably be pulling together an actual feedback form at some point and dropping emails and such. But really, just any way that you're comfortable giving us feedback, give us that feedback, because like I said, we're shooting this out into the world. It's based on a ton of feedback, but go use it, put it through its paces and tell us what's missing or what's confusing in the UI if there's something, or what you really liked in the UI, so we make sure and don't take that away, those types of things. So please, 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 as part of this early access group, we're relying on you to give us the thing. And something that happened in the chat, I want to call out, like there were some release notes links going by. Alex accidentally gave David the edit URL for the release notes. Y'all couldn't access those because you were trying to edit our release notes and the guides and such. And I'm realizing that was a different question. So if you clicked on the guide links and they took you to a login, there was links provided later. David will send all of those out as well. David, were you able to find the release notes URL as well?
I got the release notes page, but I was looking for the one where you send out for people to sign up to
2
be
seconds.
included in the emails. I couldn't
I
find
will
that
go.
one.
I will go grab it. Almost there. Any other questions? Get them to us. This is going to take me 2 seconds to get to. I told you the wrong place, David. That's why you couldn't find it. I just went to where I told you it was, and it wasn't there because it's in a different place. That was my fault. All right, here is the way to sign up for our release notes. Oh, that's the wrong thing. Dang it. 2 seconds. That was the wrong URL. That's to our internal Slack. Don't use that. We're good at this. You can tell all the bumps in the road of the very first training for it. Okay, here is your release notes URL to actually fill out, drop your email in, and we will add you to our release notes. You also were the first people ever trained on peer review. So we will learn from all of these and include them. But David will send out all of these URLs, send the recording. He'll send the guides that have all this information in it as well. He will send the release notes thing so you can sign up, so that you can send this around to anyone else as well. This should be on in your LMS, so you can go play with it and get us the feedback. Okay, and we ran over an hour, so my apologies and thank you for your patience and hanging out as we got through all of that.
Marcus, I think that's something you just mentioned at the end. I know I was mentioning to you, I had a question about this. This is open for everybody. So if they have colleagues that want to try this out, they don't have to special request to use this. Correct?
Yeah, initially we were asking for people who wanted to have it turned on because we thought there would be some interest. We were overwhelmed by the number of people who wanted to try it out. And so we have turned it on for everyone. It's not easy to stumble into. You'd have to go create an assignment, find the peer review tab. So we don't expect anyone to go find it on accident because we haven't made it a top level selected thing yet. But it is in fact on for all of your colleagues, because the number of people requesting basically meant we were going to turn it on for everyone anyway. So it is on for everyone. So I appreciate you signing up for the early access. It turns out we didn't just turn it on for you because so many people requested. That was going to be insanely time consuming to manage that process. So thank you, David, for pointing that out. All right, thank you, everybody. We will let y'all go. I appreciate you hanging out late. And Nicole, thanks for the kind words. I appreciate y'all. Stop recording.